The front camera was pretty easy. So here it is there. At the moment I've just held it in place with tape until I've tested it and I'm happy with the position, and then you can see that this mounting plate has a screw either side, and I'll just screw it straight into this piece. I might use a little bolt just to hold it extra secure. So routing the cable was pretty easy. I mean, I had this whole bumper off anyway because I was respraying it, so I actually did the cabling before I put the bumper back on. But even if I hadn't have done that, it still would have been pretty simple, just a little bit more fiddly, that's all. So it runs inside this piece. This front grille comes off, and then you can get to it all very easy. And because I take this bumper off, I mean, I've had it off 3 times now, and I reckon I'll probably end up taking it off again. I left myself some notes how to remove the bumper. I did the same thing last time actually with the clips, so I knew which clip was which. So I've got these little notes all over the car. It was, you know, secret reminders for myself for how to dismantle it again. So anyway, the cable runs up behind this grille, and it sits in right close inside this bumper here, so it's nice and out the way of the heat mostly. And it comes up and it goes around the back of this light fixture, and there's a cable tie. Do not cut. There's no need to cut that one. I'd cut the other ones, and then it goes inside. Let me move this light. So it comes inside and goes up underneath this part here, and then it comes out here. Because this is the front camera, they gave it this extra bit of heat shielding conduit. So that's what this corrugated is, and then it goes up here. It goes behind the fuse box, and then I fed it all the way around over this thing, and then I followed an existing cable, which was this one, cable tied it in a couple of places. Now, to get it inside the cabin, that was the most difficult part, and I had a good rummage around. Some of the cables go out into the wing cavity and then in through the door, the same hole where the rubber boot from the door joins. That's a really small fiddly area, and the only way to get to it properly would be to unbolt this wing, which I'm not willing to do. Same on the other side, but once I got behind the air filter, if I show the light, I could see right down. Now you see this, so behind the air filter you see this black rubber piece here. So this is a massive rubber boot which goes around the steering column, and the actual steering column itself, you know, is only about this wide, but the boot is enormous. I mean, the actual, it's about this wide in total, this boot, and at least this long. So even though it's a little bit naughty, I made a little hole in the side of that boot, in the part where it's actually joined to the car, and I fed the cable through there. So if I come round onto the driver's side, and go in here, I'll put the camera on night vision, if that helps. So if you look up in here, you can see the cable. There's the boot I was talking about, and the cable comes out just there. You see that little black cable on the right hand side? So it's miles away from everything, and it was super easy just to poke through with a dowel and then shove the cable through. So that's how I brought the cable into the car. It was just the easiest thing to do, and it seemed fairly safe to me. So that's the way I've done it. And that's that. So this one was very simple. And where is it? There it is there. So the rear camera was very simple. This is the piece of trim which goes above my number plate and the handle for the boot here. And the previous installer, whoever did the camera, just mounted it onto one of these struts. They're very convenient because they're already angled quite nicely. And the way this piece is held in to the car is there's two of these push button clips, one here and the other one would be here, and these are 4 screws, so you just pop it on of these 2 push button clips, then you can open the boot and put the 4 screws in from the side. So what the previous guy did is he removed one of those clips and he just fed the cable straight in through that hole into the trunk, which works well, so I'm just going to use the same method. So here's the new camera. I had to modify the mounting plate ever so slightly to make holes to drill into the strut, and after a quick test it wasn't quite low enough. So if I can make this come out on camera, where is it? Here, you see this grey plastic spacer. I just had a spare piece of grey plastic from some bracket, like a leftover IKEA piece, so I just cut half of that off and that was the perfect thickness. I drilled a hole in here just so I could cable tie it neatly to this one and then run it over the top, nicely out the way, and I'll just feed it in through here through another hole I made, like that, and then I'll feed it in through the same hole as the other camera. So that's that. I'll leave both cameras hooked up, purely because even though I'm not using it, I might as well hook it up, while I'm there, and it gives me options later. So I'll have them both hooked up. So this is the wiring for the driver's door. This is the original plug of the mirror, and I cable tied the new plug tightly at the bottom and then once more around the plug itself, because this one slides all the way in and out and I don't want this to get caught in all the little contours of metal inside this hole. Then on the inside, take the door lining off. That whole door carve just pops off with a few screws in some places, and then I took the speaker off so I could get up inside, feel the cable through, and this is the new cable coming down. Let me just move this light. This is the new cable coming down, and I'm not going to use this trigger cable for the side mirrors, so I've just bunched it up here out the way with a couple of cable ties. And then with the speaker off, I could reach up inside and feed the cable through the same rubber boot, this one here. Now this was a bit tricky in this car because, as you can see, this rubber boot is not straight. It goes in like a S shape or Z shape, whichever way you're looking at it. So I popped it off from the door side, and then with much swearing and hurting of fingers, I managed to feed it through with the help of a channel finder and come out. And then it comes out the same place. Just move this light again. Inside the lining next to where the footwell is, and then here's the lead coming out, and now I can take it wherever I like. Now this side was not too difficult because, as you can see, there's not much here in the way, just a couple of cables, and I can get right inside and I can find this hole very easily. So this door took me less than an hour. Now the passenger side was much more difficult. I didn't stop to film it because it was really, really hard, and there was, at one point I was going to give up. Behind that panel where you can see the red flare is the mission computer, and I don't know how they managed to stuff that many cables and units in one place. There's not a millimeter to spare. And then even to get to the mission computer, normally you take the whole dash out, and then it's got these screws, it's like some here and some really far inside, And so purely by feel alone, and by putting the Handycam back showing there so I could see what was there in mirror image, I managed to take the screws out holding the mission computer in place, and then managed to get the cable through. So that cable is already coming through. This is it here. This is the cable that's coming through. But that door took me the best part of 2 days. It took me like a whole weekend to do that. This one was easy, an hour, and now I just pop on those panels, refit the speaker, and I'm done. So if I had known that that side was going to be so difficult, it really would have made me think again. Anyway, it's all done now, so all the cabling is done, and next I can start hooking up some cameras. So now that I've run the cables, I want to hook it up for the first time, do the first test, and for once luck is on my side. All I had to do was take out a few bolts holding in this trim piece, and straight away I found this bundle here, which is very nicely labelled back camera input, and ultimately it comes into the standard type of connector. That's really lucky, because usually you've got some proprietary connector on the back of the nav, and in fact this has this little pass-through unit. So this is like some proprietary little thing. So often you'll have some connector like that on the back of the nav, or maybe like that, and then you'll have to make some adapter, or if you can find some adapter online. I don't have to do any of that. I just leave everything exactly as it is and just replace this input here. So that's really lucky. That's normally the biggest hassle. And then even more lucky, whoever installed this nav did a pretty neat job, and the power leads are split with spare terminals. So this yellow one is positive, and you can see here it's actually split, and there's a spare terminal here. The red one, ACC, that's the accessory. That's also split with a spare terminal. And then I looked to see where this guy grounded it, and he did it just here. You see this bolt here. So I'll just undo that and ground it on the same one. So I haven't even got to take out this nav. I've got to do nothing. This is the easiest job I've ever had. I'm really lucky here. So I just got to swap this, crimp the ends of my new lead to make some plugs to go into these terminals, and that's it. That's all the wiring done. Yeah, so I'll just quickly get those crimps ready, and then I'll pop it in and fire it up for the first time. Okay, so I've just hooked up the 3 power leads and the camera input, and I've reconnected the battery. So first of all, let's put it into accessory, and the unit's turned on. But I won't be able to see anything until I put it into reverse. So let me turn the ignition on, and then put it in reverse. Maybe I have to turn this on. Okay, so it's working. The cameras are dangling around at the moment, so they're probably not pointing in the right direction. So this should be the front camera, I guess, which means that should be the back camera, which the boot is open, so it's pointing at the ceiling. And I've got the left camera plugged in, but it's just dangling free at the moment. So far so good, looks like it works. I don't see a menu button. Maybe this one? Oh. So it looks like there's quite a few options to play with. So I don't want to keep it in reverse all the time, so I'm going to turn it off, and I've found the other video input, which is here for the nav. So I'm going to unplug it from this one, put it in the video unit, and then play about with the settings. That should mean I don't have to turn the ignition on. Okay. So I just had a little play around, and that other input wasn't the auxiliary input. It was actually the rear monitor output, and I can't find the rear input cable. I think it was like an optional upgrade. So that's why it's still in reverse, and you can hear it beeping. I had a quick play of the settings. I was able to change the car colour to blue, which is quite fun, so it matches the car. And unfortunately, this white text here, kanji, this is displayed by the nav unit, you know, saying be careful reversing. So I can't get rid of that. I tried with the Navi settings, unfortunately I can't turn that off. So that's a bit of a shame, but not the end of the world. Apart from that, it seems to be working well. You can choose to have the 360 on this side or this side. So the basically test is done. It works. So now I'll turn it all off and hardwire it in completely, and then play with all the settings and camera positions later.